and thanks for joining us on Chicago Tonight Latino Voices. I'm Joanna Hernandez. Here's what we're looking at. The Trump administration is using the IRS to further push deportation efforts. We hear from local advocates on potential consequences.
Congratulations again, Alderman Quezada. Welcome to the City Council.
The 35th Ward's new alderman joins us to talk about his latest role and pushback from some of his new colleagues.
It's like our job to open the door and then hold it open for these other kids to come through.
And inside a local organization helping teens tell their stories. And now to some of today's top stories. The Chicago Police Department is mourning the loss of a young officer. The off-duty female officer who was found dead at the 18th District Police Station overnight has been identified by medical examiners as 34-year-old Melissa Torres. Authorities say she was discovered with an apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound around 2:30 in the morning. The department continues to investigate the circumstances surrounding her death. The foundation Light the Line was outside the precinct today providing support and resources for the department. This morning, during a reception event honoring officers for their service, the Chicago Police Memorial Foundation paid tribute to the fallen officer.
We know you are all reeling in pain, but we also know you will push through and continue to show up for each other and your communities. That is why we feel it's so important to recognize your valiant efforts today and every day. You show up even in the hardest days. To all the Chicago Police family, please reach out if you need help coping with this tragedy or any challenge. Resources are available. Use them.
And stocks tumble again as investors worry about an escalating trade war with China. The Dow today dipped 1,000 points or 2.5%, while the SP dropped 3.5% and the Nasdaq closed down at 4.3%. It comes just a day after the market surge when President Donald Trump announced a 90-day pause on some of his reciprocal tariffs. But the reprieve didn't last long as Trump speeded up tariffs on Chinese imports to 145%. A controversial bill requiring proof of citizenship to register to vote in federal elections is moving forward. Today, U.S. House Republicans passed the Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Act. The legislation requires people to provide proof of citizenship, like a valid passport or birth certificate, in person when registering to vote. While it is already illegal for non-citizens to vote in federal elections, supporters of the bill argue the bill is necessary to strengthen public trust in the electoral process. However, critics say it could disenfranchise eligible voters who do not have easy access to the required documents. If you're a Harry Potter fan, it's time to grab your wands and head downtown. Today, the Harry Potter store opened on Michigan Avenue, and hundreds of people lined up for the grand opening. The 12,000 square foot store brings a wizarding world of Harry Potter to life with interactive displays, photo opportunities, and a wide variety of merchandise. Did I mention they have a butter beer bar? Sign me up. The store is open Monday through Sunday. Up next, a new tactic in the Trump administration's efforts to pressure undocumented immigrants.
Chicago Tonight, Latino Voices, is made possible in part by the support of these donors.
The acting commissioner of the Internal Revenue Service is resigning in protest. The move comes after the IRS reached an agreement with the Department of Homeland Security to share taxpayer information about some undocumented immigrants with law enforcement agencies. It's part of President Donald Trump's deportation push, but advocates are pushing back, saying the deal could weaken trust in the tax system. Joining us now with more are Kevin Herrera, a legal director at Raise the Floor Alliance, and Isabel Martinez, board president of Centro de Trabajadores Unidos, or the United Worker Center. Thank you both for joining us. Now, Kevin, I want to start with you. Raise the Floor is part of the coalition taking legal action against this agreement. Why take this step?
It's been very clear, based on conversations with our coalition members, our partners in DC, Public Citizen and Alan Horowitz from George Washington School of Law, as well as from organizations that join us from New Mexico, Somos un Pueblo Unido, and United Action for the City in Los Angeles, that this is a moment of national peril. Honestly, it's a move to undermine public confidence in the IRS. It's an attack on the supports that we all depend on, with over $60 billion in taxes paid by undocumented taxpayers or people with ITINs. And then again, it's a terrorizing aspect that they're looking to bring upon our communities, primarily by forcing people to believe that by doing their civic duty and paying taxes on their income, that will somehow be weaponized against them and used to seek them out, when there's not a very individualized suspicion for any of these individuals, and they've been paying taxes as they support us for years.
And Kevin, no prior presidential administration has done something like this before. What sort of message would you say this sends?
This sends a message that it doesn't matter how sacrosanct or protected an agency is. The Trump administration is more than willing to break it down and to use it for a political ends or a political agenda. So what we have come to understand is the law is very clear, and it's that you can't ask for taxpayer data, because it's very important that when we pay taxes, we have an expectation of privacy, because so much sensitive information is in there: our addresses, our family members, where we work, who our spouses are. And that privacy protection, that data expectation of we can't expect that someone's going to be able to pry into it, has totally been upended based on, again, larger promises about mass deportations, whether or not they're effective or whether or not they're actually achieving an end for ourselves and our neighbors.
And Isabel, the Trump administration promotes this narrative that immigrant workers don't pay taxes. We know that is not factual. How are they able to file, and what type of tax forms do they file?
Well, every person that pays taxes that does not have a Social Security number, their recourse is to obtain an ITIN number. They have to present their very private information, their name, their date of birth, even their physical passport has to be sent in to the IRS to be able to obtain the ITIN. So releasing this information to DHS is going, it goes to the core of what they believe was going to be private information that they were disclosing to the IRS.
Were you shocked when this agreement was made?
The thing is that I'm also an immigration attorney, and I always advise my clients, okay, you have to pay taxes, you have to follow the law, and now this is going to be held against my clients. It's putting a target on them for following the law.
And let's talk about this plan. ICE officials claim that this plan is to share confidential taxpayer information to help them find people who are collecting benefits that aren't entitled to and using someone else's identity. Kevin, what are your concerns about this plan?
So primarily, I think that that's a false justification for what they're claiming to do. Honestly, when you look at the Memorandum of Understanding, which was turned over to us as part of the lawsuit that we've brought against the IRS, it really just explains that there is a broad suspicion of hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of immigrants that are in the country without authorization. There is some specificity as to people with deportation orders or people who are suspected to have overstayed certain visas, but there's no clarity on that, and the idea that there is some sort of subterfuge or people are using false identities to remain in the country, and how the IRS would be used to even, find that out if it were true, is really hazy. So I don't know that any of those explanations really line up with the actual justification for.
And Isabel, let's talk about benefits. What benefits are undocumented tax-paying workers entitled to?
Well, if by the time that they retire, they have not been able to adjust their status, obtain a green card, naturalize, they will not be able to get any Social Security benefits. They cannot obtain every single penny that they've put into the Social Security, their federal taxes, their income tax, everything they've paid, they're not entitled to it. And so this money is just being left into.
As we just heard, Kevin, there's thousands of dollars that go into it.
Exactly, and they're not entitled to it if they eventually cannot obtain status once they are retiring. So they're missing out on all this money they've put into the system, and obviously they did it voluntarily because they paying taxes,
like you're saying,
getting
trying to follow the rules.
Follow the rules, and we encourage that at every moment when we're doing any type of case for a client. And if they follow the rule, they don't even be able, they cannot even get the benefit once they retire.
And Isabel, I want to mention, according to the Institute of Taxation and Economic Policy, undocumented immigrants paid $96.7 billion in federal, state, and local taxes in 2022, and Illinois tax revenue was $1.5 billion. Would you say there is some concern that this effect could discourage them from wanting to pay taxes or filing taxes?
It definitely will discourage them because they will have fear that now having to get an ITIN, that it's going to put, they're going to be criminalized and put them at risk, that DHS is now going to come and look for them and detain them and separate them from their families. The only reason why they came to this country is to try to provide for this family, and now they'll be separated, and everything they've worked for, it's going to be left behind. Their homes. You know, many immigrants come to this country because here they are able to own their home for the first time. And now if they are detained, deported, they will have to leave everything behind.
And like the home that they worked for, as you mentioned. And Kevin, as a result of this agreement, our IRS Acting Commissioner Melanie Cause and several other leadership employees have chosen to resign from their position. You know, what does this say? What does it say? What do you take of it?
What it says to me and to the other advocates that are involved in this, as well as to many people involved in the federal government, is, look, this has been a steadfast policy for the IRS since the laws that govern it were put into place. And so data privacy, our expectation of confidence in the administration, has been thrown out the window. And with that abandonment, people who believe themselves to be responsible for maintaining the IRS are leaving the agency because they just can't abide by how much illegality is being put into place when they're running their systems.
And Isabel, we have time for one last question. How are you advising the people who come to you, the undocumented workers? At this point, how are you advising them?
It's a hard position to be in because people do trust an attorney to guide them. I'm not an accountant, but again, I have always told my clients, like, do your duty as a person that lives in the United States. Pay your taxes. You know, at the long run, this will be a benefit to you. But now it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard for me to advise this because they will be discouraged by this.
Oh, sorry,
Yes,
can I add
some
one
final
thing?
thoughts?
Yeah, just that we're in the middle of a legal fight on this. Next Wednesday, we'll be able to stand up in DC in front of a judge and say, this is unlawful, you have to put a stop to it. So in terms of people and what they're thinking about, the fight's not over. And so we may not know what the administration's policy is moving forward yet. So it's really important to keep that in mind.
Well, thank you both for your input. Thank you for joining us. Up next, one-on-one with the newest member of Chicago City Council. Stay with us. Chicago City Council just got a new member. This week, Alder people approved Anthony Quezada as a new alderperson of the 35th Ward. Despite some opposition from City Council members over a social media post he published back in 2014, Mayor Brandon Johnson appointed 29-year-old Quezada to replace former alderperson Carlos Ramirez-Rosa, who is now the head of the Chicago Park District. Quezada represents parts of Logan Square, Hermosa, Avondale, Irving Park, and Avondale Park. And he joins us now. Thank you for joining us. Congratulations. And I want to start off. You're a lifelong Chicagoan who grew up in Logan Square. What does this transition to alderperson mean to you?
Oh, it means so much to me. You know, it's been a great honor to be able to serve our community and my neighborhood in so many different ways, as a community organizer, as a 35th Ward Democratic Committeeman, most recently as a Cook County Commissioner of the 8th District, but now as the alderman of representing large portions of Logan Square, places that I grew up, that I was raised in, that have raised me and developed me into the leader and person I am today. It is an extreme honor. I feel so happy to come into work every single day.
Did you ever envision that one day you were going to be an alderperson? That young kid who, like you mentioned, grew up in Logan Square, that was one day going to represent the ward?
You know, I interned for an alderman when I was 18. I interned for first ward Alderman Joe Moreno. Then I worked for, Alderman Carlos Ramirez-Rosa for 6.5 years. But I've always dedicated my life to public service. And so, where I saw myself as a county commissioner, I felt very comfortable, I felt very confident, I felt very happy. But being an alderman was something that came, very quickly. And I'm really grateful, and I'm really excited to get to work.
So it seems like it was in you. And talking about Rosa Ramirez, you also worked, as you mentioned, as an aide to Ramirez-Rosa as the 35th Ward Democratic Committee man for more than 6 years. How do you see this current state of the 35th Ward? What are some opportunities that you see, and why are you the right person for the job?
Well, to clarify, I was the Neighborhood Services Director for Alderman Ramirez-Rosa for 6.5 years, which means I oversaw infrastructure improvement projects, city services, social services, to our ward's 55,000 residents. Then I was elected 35th Ward Democratic Committeeman in 2020, where I served that position for 2.5 years. But the reason why I'm ready is because I'm from this neighborhood. I know this neighborhood. I know the issues impacting our residents, the concerns, the dreams, the aspirations. But I've also been a coalition builder. I have played a pivotal role in building our Northwest Side Progressive Coalition of grassroots community-based organizations, leaders, residents. And so I know that I'm ready because I have earned the trust of my community residents.
What would you say are some of the things that you're most passionate about? Because we know some of these neighborhoods have faced gentrification.
Yes. Well, the reason why I got inside public service and in community organizing was because of the historic levels of housing displacement and gentrification that impacted my neighborhood of Logan Square growing up. So housing is still a prevalent issue today, but also all other types of forms of economic injustice. Workers don't have enough money. People are working 2 to 3 jobs to get by. There aren't enough community-based clinics, in our neighborhoods. So there is a plethora of issues, let alone, folks not having quality, affordable health care. So, as somebody who is deeply committed in prioritizing the needs of poor and working class residents, that's what I've done as a commissioner, and that's what I'll do as alderman.
So you've seen those changes firsthand.
Absolutely. My family, was impacted by poverty. I grew up experiencing poverty. My mom most recently was experiencing homelessness on and off for a couple of years. So this is a personal matter, but it's also an issue that impacts so many different residents across the 35th Ward and the city of Chicago.
And you also grew up in an immigrant household, correct?
That's right. My father's from Mexico. My mom's from Costa Rica. My father's still undocumented. So this is a very personal matter for me.
And I want to talk about something else. When you announced you would run for alderperson, a controversial social media post from 2014 that you wrote when you were in high school resurfaced, in which you used an anti-black racial slur. How do you feel about this post now?
It's something that I have deeply, I deeply regret. It's something that I've apologized for, publicly and in private with, members of the Chicago Black Caucus. This was a conversation between friends. There's no excuse for that word. It is not a reflection of my values or my character. And my record as a community organizer and as a legislator, I think, speaks for that.
So you're saying, like, moving forward, you're just showing with actions?
Absolutely. And I've had so many positive conversations with the majority of the city council. I've issued my apology publicly, and through my actions, I think I will earn the trust of my colleagues.
And you face, again, as we mentioned, some backlash from the Black Caucus and other members from the Chicago City Council, and you were sworn in with an approval of 32-11. How can you move past this and earn people's confidence as alderperson? As you just mentioned, actions is one of the biggest ones for you.
Absolutely. I think the remarks that my colleagues made were very clear. This wasn't, their votes weren't against me personally. I think it was a matter of principle for them, and I respect that, and I look forward to working with them.
How can you use this as an opportunity to bring people together?
Absolutely. I have always rooted myself, I believe, a core tenet of my leadership and the leadership of elected officials at any form of government should be collaboration, should be dialogue, should be understanding and building bridges. I have done that work in my community, and that's what I'll do as an alderman. And
you kind of just listed about all the roles that you've had. You also are the youngest and first openly gay Latino on the board of commissioners, and you also served as commissioner on the Forest Preserves Board of Directors. I mean, it seems like you've done a variety of things. How do these roles help you prepare to become an alderman?
Absolutely.
To be an alderman?
I'm somebody who understands systems, right? I'm somebody who understands systems of bureaucracy, government programs and services. And again, as someone who's worked for the alderman, the previous alderman, for 6.5 years, I know how to fill potholes, cut trees, put in service requests, and I'm really excited to be doing that work.
Which one would you say is the hardest one? You talked about potholes, different service requests.
The problem is sometimes departments don't have all the resources that they need, and so there is a delay, and so you feel that conflict between residents' desires for services to be immediately met and then the limitations of departments. But what it requires is good advocacy and being a good liaison.
What would you say you're taking away also from the previous alderman, Ramirez-Rosa? What are you taking away from him?
Alderman Ramirez-Rosa served our ward and our city with distinction, with over 10 years of service in that city council. And his deep commitment to justice and to equity and his record of being a coalition builder is something that I've learned, and it's something that I will continue to carry as the next 35th Ward Alderman.
And now, as you transition as your role as alderman, what is your plan to fill your vacancy as commissioner in the 8th District?
Absolutely. So per law and per county ordinance, what has to happen is that the representatives of the local political party, in this case the Democratic Party, have to convene. So the Democratic Committee people of the 8th District, who constitute the 8th District, must convene a meeting to appoint my vacancy. As what we have done on the Northwest side in these most recent years is we've held democratic, transparent processes, a process that we like to call a people's appointment process. It's a process that we went through to nominate and endorse our newly elected, State Senator Graciela Guzman, and it's something that we're going to engage in as well. So we're going to provide opportunity for the public to engage, local political organizations and stakeholders to put their name forward and to be vetted by the community and then be endorsed by our Democratic Committee people.
And we only have a couple seconds, but I need to ask, how does your family feel that now you're the alderperson?
They're very excited. They're very proud. I'm a neighborhood kid. I grew up in the 2100 block of Tallman. I think I'm the first alderman from the 2100 block of Tallman, and I know my community is extremely proud of me, and I won't let them down.
Well, thank you and good luck.
Thank you so much.
Up next, a local organization helping teens tell their own stories. A local organization is empowering teens to challenge the narratives about their communities. We met up with the founder of an anti-violence initiative who turned his life around and is now giving young people opportunities he didn't have.
Hit record? Yep, hit record. All right, now we're recording. I'm gonna let you know when to come in.
It's after school on a weeknight, and a group of students are working on a script.
Action, go.
They're all part of the organization Luv City, a film production operation focused on youth violence prevention on the West Side.
When you're ready, hit record and get them the signal.
Here, students delve into the world of digital media, learning about film production, editing, photography, and acting.
What y'all got going on, man?
Our most important mission to be inspirational. A lot of the violence comes from hopelessness. There's nothing to live for. So now you're not scared of nothing. If I'm feeling pain, you're gonna feel pain. So we need to start healing some of that pain and start letting them know there's something for you to live for.
Andre Rodriguez, also known as Dre, is the founder of Luv City. He says the organization was inspired by his desire to connect with his son after spending 10 years in prison.
It made me realize that I needed to change who I was, or else, I'd spend the rest of my life in bad situations. So I started thinking about what I wanted to do with the rest of my life.
After his release at 39 years old, Rodriguez became a mentor for an anti-violence prevention program in Pilsen. There he noticed how smartphones played a role in connecting with youth.
So long story short, taught myself how to shoot and edit music videos. And once we started putting those music videos out, now I had young people from different neighborhoods reaching out, trying to work with me. So that's when I knew I had something.
What started as an experiment grew into Luv City. In 2022, Rodriguez received a state grant and moved the program to its own space in Garfield Park.
They know here they're heard. We hear them, we see what they're like, what kind of stories they want to tell, and then they see that develop into a short film, into a music video, into a podcast.
Giving participants like 16-year-old Isaiah Nieves opportunities to explore acting.
I look-key get inspired because, he started off shooting off iPhone, off a little iPhone. Now he got this big space here with big cameras.
Or 14-year-old Leah Marquez to learn more about photography.
I also, not just photography, we also did a design of clothing, and I really liked that because it gave me an opportunity I never thought I would have.
Down with you. Programming is offered throughout the year, exploring topics from the emotions of a first date.
Cute, yeah.
the struggles of drug addiction and gang violence.
So part of our job here to make these kids realize that what they have to say does matter, that they have, a lot of potential.
Their projects challenge assumptions Rodriguez says people may have on their communities.
And I started thinking of myself, but outside of myself as a kid, and I felt bad for them. Like I wanted to help them. That's the reason why I guess I got compassion for what other people are going through.
On April 27th, the organization will showcase several of their short films at the AMC Galewood Theater in Austin from 2 to 5. To learn more, visit our website. And that's our show this Thursday night. You can stream Chicago Tonight on WTTW YouTube channel every evening and catch up on any programs you may have missed. And join us tomorrow night at 5:30 and 7 for the Weekend Review. And a quick note before we go, tonight's my last show before I go on maternity leave. I'll be back this summer though, and I'll see you then, so send me all your positive vibes. Now from all of us here at Chicago Tonight, I'm Joanna Hernandez. Thank you for watching. Stay healthy and safe. Buenas noches. See you soon.
Closed captioning is made possible by Robert A. Clifford and Clifford Law Offices, a Chicago personal injury and wrongful death firm that serves the needs of clients in the Chicago area and throughout the nation.